storm had started just after sunset. At first, it was the kind of storm most people would ignore. A few distant rumbles of thunder, rain tapping softly against the windows, wind brushing through the trees outside the house. But by 9 o'clock that night, the storm had turned violent. The rain was coming down in heavy sheets, the wind howling hard enough to bend branches and rattle the siding of the house. Lightning flashed every few seconds, lighting up the quiet suburban street in brief, blinding bursts. Inside the house, 17-year-old Daniel was alone. His parents had driven 2 hours away earlier that day to visit family and wouldn't be back until the following afternoon. They had asked Daniel to stay home and keep an eye on the house. Normally, he didn't mind being alone, but storms like this made the house feel different. The wind kept hitting the walls in sudden gusts, making the structure creak and groan. Every so often, something outside would slam or scrape across the driveway. Daniel tried to ignore it. He stayed in the living room with the lights on, flipping through videos on his phone while the television played quietly in the background. Around 9:30, the power flickered. The lights dimmed for a second, then returned. Daniel glanced up at the ceiling nervously. Another flash of lightning lit the entire room through the windows. Then thunder exploded almost immediately afterward, so loud it shook the glass. Daniel muttered under his breath and turned the volume up on the TV. He hated storms. About 15 minutes later, he heard the first sound. At first, he thought it was just part of the storm, a dull metallic rattle somewhere in the house. He paused the video he was watching. The house went quiet except for the rain pounding the roof. Then it happened again, a faint clinking noise, like metal hitting metal. Daniel frowned and stood up. He walked toward the kitchen, where the back door led out to the yard. The wind was blowing hard enough that the door might have been shaking in its frame. But when he stepped into the kitchen, the door looked perfectly still. He stood there for a moment, listening. The rain hammered against the windows. Thunder rolled in the distance. Then, the doorknob moved, not violently, just a slow twist. Daniel froze. The knob turned slightly, then stopped. He stared at it, his brain trying to make sense of what he had just seen. Maybe the wind had shifted something. Maybe the door wasn't latched properly. He slowly stepped closer. Just as he reached the middle of the kitchen, the knob turned again. This time harder. Someone was trying to open the door. Daniel's heart dropped. The door was locked. Whoever was outside jiggled the handle again, testing it. Daniel backed away slowly, his chest tightening with panic. Then the knocking started. 3 slow knocks. Not loud, not desperate, just deliberate. Daniel didn't move. Rain continued pouring outside. Lightning flashed through the kitchen window, briefly lighting up the backyard. But he couldn't see anyone out there. After a few seconds, the knocking stopped. Daniel stood frozen in the middle of the kitchen. He thought about calling someone, but his phone was still in the living room. And part of him kept trying to convince himself it was nothing. Maybe someone had the wrong house. Maybe it was a neighbor looking for help during the storm. But something about the way the knob turned made his stomach twist. It hadn't looked like someone knocking for help. It looked like someone testing the lock. Daniel slowly backed into the hallway and returned to the living room. He grabbed his phone. Right as he picked it up, another sound echoed through the house. This one came from the front, a loud rattling. The front door. Daniel's blood ran cold. Whoever had been at the back door had moved to the front. He turned off the TV so he could hear better. The house fell into near silence except for the storm. Then the front doorknob started shaking. Harder this time, back and forth, like someone trying to force it open. Daniel stood in the middle of the living room, completely frozen. The person outside began knocking again, faster this time. Bang, bang, bang. Then it stopped. For a moment, there was nothing but thunder. Daniel barely breathed. Then came a new sound, A faint scraping noise along the side of the house, like footsteps moving along the wall. They were going around the house, checking every door. Daniel's heart pounded harder. He quietly locked the sliding glass door in the living room and stepped away from the windows. Minutes passed, then the noise returned. This time from the basement door. The handle rattled violently. Whoever it was trying every possible entrance. Daniel finally grabbed his phone and called his older sister. She picked up almost immediately. He tried to explain what was happening, whispering as he spoke. She told him to call the police. Right then, the power went out. The house went completely black. Daniel stopped breathing. Only lightning flashes now lit the inside of the house in quick bursts of white. And during the next flash, Daniel saw something that made his stomach drop. A silhouette standing outside the living room window, perfectly still, watching the house. The lightning faded. Darkness swallowed the room again. Daniel crouched low and backed away from the window. His sister was still talking on the phone, telling him to stay quiet and hide. Another loud rattle echoed from the basement door. Then another from the back door. The person was getting desperate. Daniel locked himself in the upstairs bathroom and waited. For nearly 20 minutes, the sounds continued. Doors rattling, knobs twisting, footsteps outside. Then, suddenly, nothing. The storm still raged outside, but the sounds around the house had stopped. Police cars arrived about 10 minutes later. The flashing red and blue lights cut through the rain outside. Daniel ran downstairs to let them in. The officers searched the yard with flashlights, checking every side of the house. But they didn't find anyone. No footprints, no signs of forced entry. Nothing. At least that's what they thought. One officer eventually walked toward the garage at the side of the house. The garage door was slightly open, just a few inches. Daniel's parents had left it fully closed earlier that day. The officer slowly lifted it. Inside the dark garage, they found muddy footprints leading from the door. Deeper inside, and next to the wall, was a backpack. Inside the backpack were tools, a crowbar, gloves, a flashlight, and a folded piece of paper. The officer opened the paper. It was a rough drawing of the house layout. Every entrance marked, every door circled, and written at the bottom were 4 words. Storms make people careless. The police believed whoever had been outside had planned to break in during the storm, but something about the house must have spooked them before they actually tried forcing a door. Maybe the phone call, maybe the lights turning off, or maybe they saw the police arriving. But the most disturbing part came later that night. When Daniel's parents returned and the officers finished their report, Daniel went upstairs to his bedroom. Everything looked normal, until he noticed the closet door. It was slightly open, just a crack. Daniel slowly walked over and pulled it open. Inside, on the carpet near the back wall, were 2 fresh, muddy footprints. Someone had been inside the house, long before the storm even started.
Maya had promised herself she wouldn't take any more last-minute babysitting jobs, especially not the kind that started after midnight. But when her phone buzzed at 12:17 a.m., she was still awake, sitting on her bed in her small apartment, scrolling mindlessly and worrying about rent. The message was from a number she didn't recognize. "Hi, this is Mrs. Keller. We got your number from a neighborhood group. Our sitter canceled. We need someone tonight. Just a few hours. $200 cash." $200 for a few hours. Maya hesitated. It was late. Too late. But the address was only 15 minutes away, in a quiet suburban area she vaguely recognized. The woman offered to send a picture of her driver's license for reassurance. She sounded calm in her texts, polite, normal. Maya told herself it would be fine. She arrived at 12:46 a.m. The Keller house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, lights glowing warmly through the windows. It looked safe, ordinary. A two-story home with trimmed hedges and a porch light that flickered slightly in the cold. Mrs. Keller opened the door before Maya even knocked. She was pale and thin, maybe mid-30s, with tired eyes and damp hair like she'd just showered. Behind her stood a tall man who barely made eye contact. "Thank you for coming," Mrs. Keller said quickly. "Our daughter's asleep upstairs. She usually sleeps through the night." The father muttered a quiet hello and disappeared down the hallway. Something about the exchange felt rushed, not frantic, just off. Maya stepped inside. The house smelled faintly like bleach. Mrs. Keller knelt and spoke in a hushed voice. "Her name is Lila. She's 6. If she wakes up, just tell her Mommy and Daddy stepped out for a bit. We'll be back by 3. "Where are you going?" Maya asked, half joking. Mrs. Keller smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Just out." That was it. The front door closed. The deadbolt slid into place. And just like that, Maya was alone. At first, everything was quiet. She sat on the couch, scrolling on her phone, the television playing softly for background noise. The house made the usual settling sounds. Soft ticks in the walls, the hum of the refrigerator. At 1:23 a.m., she heard footsteps upstairs. Slow, light. Maya muted the TV and listened. The steps stopped. She waited, heart tapping slightly faster. Maybe Lila had woken up. She climbed the stairs carefully. The hallway light upstairs was already on. That made her pause. Mrs. Keller had told her Lila was asleep. All the lights had been off when Maya arrived. She walked to the end of the hall and gently pushed open the bedroom door. Lila was in bed, covers pulled up to her chin, eyes open, wide awake. "You're not my usual babysitter," the little girl said softly. Maya smiled. "No, I'm just helping tonight. Your parents will be back soon." Lila didn't smile back. "They shouldn't have left." Something about the way she said it made Maya's stomach tighten. "Why?" Maya asked lightly. Lila's eyes shifted toward the closet. "He doesn't like when they leave." Maya followed her gaze. The closet door was slightly open, just a crack. "Who doesn't like it?" Maya asked. Lila didn't answer. Instead, she slowly pulled the blanket over her head and turned toward the wall. Maya felt foolish for even feeling uneasy. Kids said weird things, imaginary friends, overactive imaginations. She stepped toward the closet and pulled the door open fully. Inside were tiny dresses, pink shoes, stuffed animals lined up neatly on the shelf. Nothing else. She closed it and turned off the hallway light before going back downstairs. At 1:57 a.m., the power went out. The TV cut to black. The house fell into complete silence. Maya froze. Outside, the rest of the neighborhood still had power. She could see lights glowing through the windows across the street. Only this house was dark. Her phone buzzed in her hand. Unknown number. She answered immediately. Static, then breathing. Not loud, just slow, steady breathing. "Hello?" she whispered. The line clicked dead. Her chest felt tight now. She tried Mrs. Keller's number. It went straight to voicemail. Upstairs, something slammed. Maya flinched and nearly dropped her phone. It wasn't the sound of something falling. It was a door. She grabbed her phone's flashlight and climbed the stairs again, every step feeling heavier than the last. Halfway up, she heard it. Dragging. A slow, scraping sound across the wooden floor, exactly above her. Her throat went dry. "Maya?" A small voice whispered from the darkness. She stopped moving. It wasn't coming from Lila's room. It was coming from the hallway. "Maya," it repeated. But it wasn't a child's voice anymore. It was deeper. Wrong. She rushed the last few steps and shone the flashlight down the hall. Empty. The bathroom door was closed. Lila's bedroom door was open. She ran inside. The bed was empty, the window was locked, the closet door was wide open. The stuffed animals were scattered across the floor like someone had swept them aside. "Lila?" she called. No response. Then she felt it. Cold air against the back of her neck. She turned slowly. The closet was deeper than she remembered. Far deeper. The back wall seemed wrong, like it stretched farther into darkness than the house's layout should allow. Her flashlight flickered, and for a split second she saw movement in the back of the closet. Not a child, something tall, unfolding itself from the dark, its head nearly brushing the ceiling, its limbs too long, bending at angles that didn't look human. And beside it, standing perfectly still, was Lila, her face blank, her eyes fixed on Maya. "He doesn't like when they leave," Lila repeated softly. The flashlight died. Maya stumbled backward, slamming into the dresser. She scrambled for the door, her hands shaking violently. Behind her, she heard the dragging again. Closer now. Something heavy pulling itself across the floor. She bolted down the stairs in complete darkness, nearly falling, heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. The front door wouldn't open. The deadbolt wouldn't turn. Her phone buzzed again in her hand. Unknown number. She didn't want to answer. It rang again, and again. Finally, she looked down at the screen. This time, it wasn't just a number. It was a live video feed. From inside the house. The camera angle showed the staircase. It showed her, standing there, frozen. And at the top of the stairs, just barely visible in the darkness behind her, something tall was leaning around the corner, watching. The video glitched, then a message appeared across the screen. "You weren't supposed to come." The breathing started again through the phone speaker, slow, patient. The power suddenly flicked back on. The house lights illuminated everything at once. The staircase was empty. No figure, no Lila. Silence. The front door unlocked with a soft click. Maya didn't wait. She ran. Neighbors later said they saw a girl sprint barefoot down the street around 2:15 a.m., screaming and crying. Police went to the Keller house that morning. No one answered. The house was empty. Completely empty. No furniture, no toys, no sign a child had ever lived there. Just dust and faint scratch marks on the upstairs hallway floor. The address Maya had been given didn't belong to anyone named Keller. In fact, records showed the house had been vacant for nearly 8 months. There was no listing in any neighborhood group, no Mrs. Keller, no Lila. The number that had texted Maya was disconnected. When police checked her call history, they found something that unsettled even them. The live video she had received wasn't streaming. It had been recorded at 12:32 a.m., 14 minutes before she even arrived at the house. Maya never babysat again. She moved out of her apartment 2 weeks later, and sometimes, late at night, her phone still lights up with a notification from an unknown number. She never opens it, but once, by accident, she saw the preview before she could look away. A dark hallway, a staircase, and at the top, something tall leaning around the corner, waiting for whoever comes after midnight.
Most babysitting stories people tell later in life are funny or embarrassing. Maybe the kid refused to go to bed. Maybe something in the kitchen caught fire. But there's one story that a girl named Hannah told years later that still unsettles everyone who hears it. Mostly because the 2 kids she was watching kept asking the same question all night. They kept asking why there was a man standing behind her. Hannah was 16 at the time and had just started babysitting for families in her neighborhood. She lived in a quiet suburban area where everyone knew each other. It was the kind of place where parents didn't think twice about leaving their kids with a responsible teenager for a few hours. The house belonged to a couple named Eric and Melissa. They had 2 kids, Tyler, who was 9, and his younger sister Lily, who was 6. Hannah had watched them once before without any problems. They were polite kids, quiet, and mostly entertained themselves. So when Melissa called again and asked if she could babysit on a Saturday night while they attended a birthday party across town, Hannah said yes immediately. She arrived at the house around 6:30 that evening. The parents gave her the usual rundown. Pizza was in the fridge. The kids were allowed to watch TV until 8:30. Bedtime was 9 o'clock. And if anything came up, she could call either of their phones. Nothing about the night seemed unusual. Before leaving, Eric joked, "They'll probably just play video games the whole time anyway." The kids barely looked up from the living room floor while their parents talked. They were building something out of plastic blocks. When the front door closed and the parents' car pulled out of the driveway, the house felt quiet but comfortable. Hannah sat on the couch while the kids finished their game. Tyler asked if they could watch a movie, so she let them pick one of the animated movies on their streaming account. They spread blankets across the floor and ate pizza while watching it. Everything felt normal. Around 8:30, Hannah reminded them it was almost bedtime. Tyler groaned the way kids always do, but he still helped Lily clean up the toys. They brushed their teeth and changed into pajamas. Their bedrooms were upstairs. Lily's room was at the end of the hallway, and Tyler's was across from it. Hannah tucked Lily into bed first. The girl had a small nightlight glowing beside her dresser, casting a soft yellow light across the room. Just before Hannah turned to leave, Lily asked quietly, "Can you leave the door open?" Hannah smiled and said, "Of course." Kids often asked for that. She left the door cracked and went across the hall to Tyler's room. He was already lying in bed, scrolling through something on a handheld game device. "Lights out," Hannah told him. He sighed but set the device on his nightstand. As Hannah turned to walk out, Tyler suddenly squinted at her with a confused expression. Then he asked something that made her pause. "Why is that guy standing behind you?" Hannah turned around immediately. There was no one there. The hallway was empty. She looked back at Tyler and gave a small laugh. "What guy?" Tyler looked confused now, too. "The one behind you. He was just there." Hannah assumed he was messing with her. "Nice try," she said. "Go to sleep." She turned off the light and left his door open like Lily's. Back downstairs, Hannah turned on the TV and sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She barely thought about what Tyler had said. Kids said weird things all the time. About 20 minutes passed before she heard footsteps upstairs. She assumed one of them needed water or the bathroom. Then Lily appeared at the top of the stairs. The girl stood there, gripping the railing. "Hannah?" Hannah looked up. "What's wrong?" Lily didn't move. She just stared at Hannah with an uneasy expression. Then she asked the exact same question Tyler had asked earlier. "Why is that man standing behind you?" Hannah felt a strange chill crawl across her shoulders. She slowly turned around again. The living room behind her was empty. Just the couch, the hallway, the kitchen light glowing softly in the distance. No one else was there. When she looked back up, Lily was still staring past her, like she expected someone to be standing there. Hannah forced a small smile. "There's nobody there," Lily frowned. "There was." Hannah walked up the stairs and gently guided Lily back toward her bedroom. "Maybe you had a bad dream." But Lily shook her head. "He was tall." That description made Hannah uncomfortable for reasons she couldn't explain. She tucked Lily back into bed and checked Tyler's room on the way downstairs. He was already asleep. At least it looked that way. The house was quiet again. Hannah returned to the couch and tried to distract herself with TV, but she couldn't stop thinking about what the kids had said. Both of them had described someone standing behind her. The same thing. About 30 minutes later, something else happened. Hannah was still sitting on the couch when she suddenly heard Tyler's voice upstairs. It sounded nervous. "Hannah?" She got up and walked toward the stairs. "What's up?" Tyler was standing in the hallway now. His face looked pale. He stared down at her. Then he whispered something that made her heart drop. "He's behind you again." Hannah spun around so fast her foot almost slipped. Nothing. The room was still empty. The silence in the house felt heavier now. When she looked back at Tyler, he wasn't smiling. He looked genuinely frightened. "He walked down the stairs," Tyler said quietly. Hannah felt a cold wave of fear move through her stomach. She tried to stay calm. "Tyler, and there's no one here." He hesitated. Then he said something even worse. "He was standing behind you for a long time." That was the moment Hannah started to feel like something was wrong. Not supernatural, something real, something in the house. She grabbed her phone and quietly locked the front door just in case. Then she walked slowly through the living room and kitchen, checking every corner. Everything looked normal. But when she reached the hallway near the stairs, something caught her eye. The back door. It was slightly open. Just an inch. Hannah was certain it had been closed earlier. She slowly pushed it shut and locked it. That's when she noticed something else. The wooden floor near the door had faint, muddy footprints, adult-sized, leading into the house. Her chest tightened. Hannah immediately ran upstairs. Both kids were still standing in the hallway, watching her. "Okay," she said quickly, trying to stay calm. "We're going into Tyler's room." They hurried inside. She locked the door and called 911. Her voice shook as she explained there might be someone inside the house. The operator told her officers were already on the way. For the next 5 minutes, Hannah sat on the floor with the kids while the house stayed completely silent. No footsteps, no doors opening, nothing. Then finally, they heard sirens. Police cars pulled up outside. Officers searched the house from top to bottom, but they didn't find anyone. The muddy footprints led from the back door, across the living room, and toward the staircase, but they stopped halfway up the stairs, like whoever made them had turned around and walked back down. One officer asked Hannah something strange. "Did either of the kids say where the man was standing?" Hannah nodded slowly. "They both said he was behind me." The officer looked at the staircase again. Then he said something that made the entire situation worse. Because of where Hannah had been sitting on the couch earlier, if someone had been standing behind her, they would have been standing directly in the shadow of the staircase, in the one spot of the room that couldn't be seen from the couch, meaning someone could have been standing there for a very long time, watching her, while the kids upstairs were the only ones who could actually see him.